I've been putting this book off for a long time. Not because I wasn't interested, but because some books feel heavy before you even open them. Today I'm reading the first 10 pages of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Excuse my pronunciation, I am not that good at Russian names. Hope you can overlook that. So, this is my first real introduction to his writing. I'm not here to explain the book, I'm not here to analyze it academically. I just want to experience it and then tell you how it felt to step into his world for the first time. If you're someone who's been curious about Dostoevsky but unsure where to start, or if you just want to listen quietly and let a story unfold, you're in the right place. Let's begin. On an exceptionally hot evening early in July, a young man came out of the garret in which he lodged in S Place and walked slowly, as though in hesitation, towards Cambridge. He had successfully avoided meeting his landlady on the staircase. His garret was under the roof of a high, five-storied house and was more like a cupboard than a room. The landlady who provided him with garret, dinners, and attendance lived on the floor below, and every time he went out, he was obliged to pass her kitchen, the door of which invariably stood open. And each time he passed, the young man had a sick, frightened feeling which made him scowl and feel ashamed. He was hopelessly in debt to his landlady and was afraid of meeting her. Not that he was cowardly and abject, quite the contrary, but for some time past he had been in an overstrained, irritable condition verging on hypochondria. He had become so hopelessly absorbed in himself and isolated from his fellows that he dreaded meeting not only his landlady but anyone at all. He was crushed by poverty, but the anxieties of his position had of late ceased to weigh upon him. He had given up attending to matters of practical importance. He had lost all desire to do so. Nothing that any landlady could do had a real terror for him, but to be stopped on the stairs, to be forced to listen to her trivial, irrelevant gossip, to her demands for payment, to her threats and complaints, and at the same time to rack his brain for excuses, to lie, to fawn. No, rather than that, he would creep down the stairs like a cat and slip out unseen. That evening, however, he had a special reason for avoiding his landlady. He had just come from a visit to the old pawnbroker woman and was lost in thought. The old woman lived in a tall building with a stone staircase and an iron railing on each side. The young man rang the bell. The door was opened a little way, and a pair of keen, suspicious eyes peered out at him from the darkness. At first, she scrutinized him in silence. Then she opened the door wider and let him pass. He went into a little room with yellow paper on the walls, geraniums in the windows, and muslin curtains. Everything in the room was old and worn. The furniture was clumsy and shabby, a sofa, a round table, a chest of drawers, and two or three chairs. On the wall hung a little icon with a lamp burning before it. The old woman stood before him, silent and waiting. "What do you want?" she asked at last. He handed her a silver watch. She examined it carefully. It was a common thing, worth little. "You'll give me a ruble and a half," she said. "A ruble and a half?" he repeated quietly. "Yes, that's my price." He said nothing and began to take the watch back. "Wait," she cried hastily and counted out the money. As he took the money, he felt a sudden loathing for her. He put the ruble and a half in his pocket and went out without a word. He went out of the building and walked slowly down the street. A feeling of intense repulsion, even loathing, rose up in his soul. I knew it, he muttered to himself. I knew I could not endure it. But the sensation passed quickly and was replaced by another strange, almost absurd. He suddenly began to laugh. He laughed at himself, at his own weakness. What foolishness, he thought. He walked on, but now his pace quickened. He crossed the street, then crossed it again without knowing why. His thoughts were confused, crowding one upon another. He remembered suddenly why he had gone to the pawnbroker. This remembrance brought with it a shudder. He stopped abruptly. No, he whispered. That's nonsense. It's only talk, idle talk. He tried to dismiss the thought, but it clung to him stubbornly. He resumed his walk, his head bent, his eyes fixed on the ground. At moments he seemed scarcely conscious of where he was going. Once he nearly ran into a passerby. Watch where you're going, the man shouted. He did not answer. He walked on, absorbed in himself. He felt exhausted, broken. A terrible weariness came over him all at once. He turned into a side street and stopped. Good God, he murmured, how loathsome it all is. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. He felt as though everything around him were pressing upon his mind. The heat, the closeness, the endless noise, all of it seemed to suffocate him. At moments, a strange thought flashed through his brain, that he might suddenly fall down right there in the street. But he did not fall. He straightened himself and walked on. He passed people without noticing them. He did not hear what was said to him. He felt cut off from the whole world. It was as though he had withdrawn into himself, shut himself up. At last he reached the room he had hired. He went in and sank onto the sofa. He lay still without moving. Thought followed thought, but he could grasp none of them. Everything seemed confused, broken, fragmented. And little by little, without knowing how, he fell asleep. Okay, I didn't expect that. 10 pages in, and it already feels like Dostoevsky isn't trying to tell a story. He's trying to place you inside someone's mind. What surprised me most was how immediate it felt. The writing isn't flashy, it's not trying to impress you, but it's unsettling because it's quiet, observant, and psychologically close. As a first time reader of Dostoevsky, I expected something distant, old, heavy in a way that feels inaccessible. But instead, it felt uncomfortably human. There's a tension already, not from events, but from the way the characters exist in the world. His thoughts, his discomfort, his inner conflict, it's all right there without explanation. And I think that's what makes it powerful. Dostoevsky doesn't guide you by the hand, he lets you sit with the unease. After just 10 pages, I can see why this book has lasted. Not because of plot, but because it understands something about the human mind that doesn't age. Will I continue reading? Yes, not because it's easy, but because it feels honest. If you've listened this far, I'd love to know. Did it draw you in or did it make you uncomfortable?